when you were talking about decoupling the release from the development cadence, he asks, you indicated that there were two definitions of done. Was there one for dev and one for release?
Yeah, that's, I don't have that slide with me. There are a ton of definition of done. I mean, in Agile, there is everybody knows the definition of done for story, but of course, in SAFe, we also have the model that we, in applied SAFe, it's usual that you have definition of done for a team increment, but you have also definition of done for a system increment. You have a definition of done for a solution increment, and you have a system definition of done for release management, of course. And these can be different depending on the solution, and this is the part of the solution-centric approach. You can imagine if you have a business-critical solution to be built, which puts your company into danger of going down, then the definition of done will be quite different, and verification, validation will be, and documentation will be done quite different than if you build with the same life cycles an application which is not business critical and only used internally. And there are the difference, and this can be very elegantly steered. Is elegantly an English word? Well, can be steered with these definition of dones. And some companies, they have even the definition of dones for capabilities, feature, and even epics. For example, in an epic definition of done, you would see here that the benefit hypothesis has been validated again, or the return on investment of that epic will be validated. Hope that answers the questions. Are there other questions, Miriam?
Yes, we have many questions, Peter.
Oh, okay.
So Marcia asks, in our organization, we've been told we can't do Agile, and I've heard this many times, because we're in a regulated environment. What kind of message could she bring back to her leadership to say, no, this is something that we definitely should do?
Yeah, I can't disagree more than that this is not true. I mean, agile and regulated environments goes along very well, but of course, as I said, in these 4 pillars, you need to have a defined process. You need to have those activities in place, roles in place. You need to have a RASIC. You need also to show that the processes are compliant to the various regulated reference models. For example, you map them to automotive spice, and you can show them how do you do that, and then you build instantiation, so you show that you build your own versions for each endeavor, and this is what you see in the regulated environments as well. And in our experience, we have customers. We have a large companies which build cockpits in an agile manner. And they are in a regulated environment, and it works very well. You just have to fulfill that you have established QMS, that you train the people on doing that you provide an easy-to-use QMS, as I said in the lessons learned, and then it definitely can be done that you have agile and in regulated environments. This is one of the key things which we have in applied SAFe as well.
Great,
long
thank
question.
you, Peter.
Long answer. Okay. Sorry.
We have some more questions here. So Zoe asks kind of an interesting question. She says, for teams that are not purely software development, but handling, in this example, she asks about financial research, work in an Agile framework. So do you recommend that they would adhere to a strictly Agile framework, or would you say that it would be better for them to come up with a best-in-breed hybrid for the whole group? So would you have a basically recommendation on how they could customize their lifecycle setup?
Let me think that. And they are doing financial research, you said.
In an Agile framework, correct.
In an Agile framework. Well, it depends a little bit on how big those researches are, but I think it should usually be done in 2 weeks. Otherwise, you can split them up in stories, and then you have like 2 or 3 stories out of one big feature, as you say here, for example, in SAFe. I don't see why why this should be a hybrid approach if you do financial research. I mean, if you do a PhD, it takes years, but financial research is, as a gut feeling, I would say no, it's perfectly fine with Agile. You don't need to go to an hybrid approach, because that will bring you other issues as well, how you can align with the Agile teams, how to put the cadence and so on. So it's much easier to adapt to one life cycle. That's what I said, don't mix if it's possible at all. And yeah, I would need more information, but I don't think that financial research should be done in an other way than in an Agile way. Then you just have probably 4 or 5 stories per iteration for 2 weeks, and this should be fine as well. Hope that answers the questions. Otherwise, send me an email and I can answer that if I think a little bit more, or if I have more details on the question. Thanks.
Okay, great. And then Ashish asks, they have a lot of hardware in their company, and they're really reluctant on embracing Agile. I know that you've seen this done for hardware. Any recommendations?
Well, at the medical device company, that was a really funny experience, and I can just let me tell you about that experience. And we developed like a blood testing an instrument, and they were for the big hospitals. They can do like 1,000 blood tests in the same machine in one row. And what we developed was the shaker system, and we had the controls, the electronic decipher, and that these blood examples, they need to be shaken. And we had the problem that not the problem. It turned out that the hardest thing to change was at the end the software, and the fastest way to change in that prototype was the mechanics. So they were much faster than we were, and for them Agile was really cool, because they changed their plans, they built a new system, and then within 1 week, 2 weeks, they had a new prototype running. And sometimes we were lacking behind with our software to cope with that. So in my experience, it can work very well. Of course, if you have, like in the automotive industry, if you have big machines who are folding the metals, and then we are not talking about developing, then we are talking about manufacturing. And this is a different thing to talk about. So yeah, for development, I would say hardware isn't that much of an issue as we have seen so far.
Okay, great. And then Drew asks, and actually makes a comment on the compliance slide, and he says that he has an interesting situation where his development teams are doing Agile, but the teams doing quality management are in waterfall. Is that something that you've seen before and have addressed?
Oh yes. That's yeah, that happens a lot. We see that a lot. It's that Agile is like a grassroots movement, and that teams are just eager to use Agile to work in an Agile manner, and that they start up building a lot of teams, and there's a momentum going on. And as long as there are not too many people doing that, and management CIOs usually can then just keep that underneath the radar, and they don't bother about that much. But as soon as there is a certain percentage rates of people doing Agile, it can get into a problems, and the quality management system gets involved as well. And it mustn't be that they are a little bit like they have also their method backpack, and they see exactly that statement of we are in regulated environments, we can't do Agile because that is not in blah blah blah. But I would say to them specifically, you're not alone, and there are extremely good papers defined. For example, there is from the CMMI Institute, there is a paper which is like mapping Scrum to CMMI, and that's a very good document. And there's an extremely good document written by the advancement of an AAMI advancement of medical instruments, and this is called the Tier 45 paper. Just typing TER 45, and this is a paper which describes how you can reach FDA Chapter 11 requirements, design controls, all that stuff in Agile. So that has been proven. And I also have had a speech at the 2014 CMMI World Conference, and it was a clear understanding of the lead assessors there that Agile can fulfill CMMI maturity level 5 requirements as well. And there's also the Software Engineering Institute in Pittsburgh. They have a very wonderful document about how to reach Agile in regulated environments. I don't remember their name right now. Sorry for that. If you write me an email, I can send you those links to those documents. To that one who posed me the question.